What is up, y'all? I feel like within today's video, I low-key may get a little bit of hate, but it's all good. I gotta stay true to my thoughts and my opinions, and I have some thoughts and opinions about Brittany Broski, because in my personal opinion, she's coming across very hypocritical, and if you guys watch me, y'all know I can't stand hypocrisy. I am so sorry, but that's the reason why I started doing commentary slash drama videos on my channel, because I've seen so many people make videos online calling people out, and I'm like, you have made the same mistake before too. So why are we like holding people to this standard, but then we're not holding ourselves to the standard? Do you know what I mean? And honestly, y'all, I've said this before time and time again. I'm the type of person that holds true to everything that I've done before in my past. I've made mistakes before. I've said offensive things before. And y'all, none of that stuff has been brought up to light. I've never been canceled for anything. I wasn't on the internet wasn't a thing when I was 19, and I was so offensive, and I would say the most aggressive, abrasive things. Do you know what I mean? But I'm keeping it real with y'all and myself by saying, hey, I've made mistakes before. So I think when people get online and they bring up things from somebody's past from 10 years ago and they try to hold that to them, it's like, y'all, people learn, people change, people grow, people learn from their mistakes, believe it or not. And I feel like people on the internet don't let things die, and they bring things up from so many years ago, and it's like, y'all, if you look at me when I was 19, I am not the same person whatsoever. Like literally whatsoever. Like, yeah, I have the same sense of humor, but I've learned to filter myself a little bit more. I've learned to not be so aggressive with the things that I say. Do you know what I mean? But obviously at that age, I didn't even know how to communicate. I was 19 years old, so I can't even imagine having the internet at that age. And I'm specifically bringing up that age because I feel like when it comes down to Brittany Broski and Tana Mongeau, I feel like Tana Mongeau is considered a controversial person just because she has been in cancellations before. But in my eyes, she is still a very young person. I want to say she's 25 years old, maybe 26 years old. To me, that's still young. And I feel like she is still learning. And if you guys have watched Tana Mongeau, you guys will see that from like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, she has learned so much and grown so much as a person. And the reason why I'm saying this is because if you guys have not seen, Brittany Broski turned down Tana Mongeau's offer to come on the canceled podcast. And she specifically said something along the lines as like, oh, I feel like my audience would hold me to a fire if I were to go on your podcast. And Tana Mongeau had wrote back and said, why? And then Brittany Broski never responded. This is where I look at Brittany Broski, and it sucks because I really enjoy Brittany. I feel like her content is hilarious. I feel like she's hilarious. I think she's relatable. She's down to earth. I feel like she's entertaining. I love her with Trixie Mattel. I feel like I've watched every single video with her and Trixie Mattel. I find them to be such a good duo. But then low key, keeping it real with you, I kind of like started side-eyeing her over this because I'm like, you literally are turning down Tana's podcast because you're basically saying she's a controversial person and your audience would be mad at you. But then you go on Theo Von's podcast, and then you've been on H3's podcast before, Ethan Klein's podcast. And I'm so sorry, but somebody like Ethan Klein, y'all, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I feel like he's a very hypocritical person. He cancels people and he like calls people out for everything. And it's like, have you seen compilations of the things that he's said and done? Like, y'all, he has said the most hurtful, offensive, like aggressive things, and he like tries to cancel people. Do you know what I mean? He's been in so much controversy. And then Brittany Broski will go on to his podcast. I don't really understand it. And then obviously Theo Von, to me, Theo Von, I'm so sorry, this is just my opinion, gets a pass because he's a comedian. And I feel like comedians obviously shouldn't have any type of filters. And I feel like if they're going to crack jokes, they're going to crack jokes at everybody. Do you know what I mean? But I am a fan of comedy. You guys know that I'm just like, yo, and on top of that too, I love dark humor. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it's gotten me through so much in life. So look, I know how people will consider Theo Von to be a controversial person, but at the end of the day, he's a controversial person, right? To some people. And Brittany Broski has went on his podcast. So I'm like, I'm not really getting it here. Honestly, in just my opinion, y'all, I'm going to play the clip within today's video. I'm just starting to think that maybe Brittany just doesn't like Tana. Maybe that's what it is. And maybe she didn't know how to tell her no. But then also at the same time, like you could have just ignored her. You know what I mean? Just like not wrote back whatsoever. I don't know. I'm so curious to know your guys' thoughts and opinions about this. Like I said, I will play the clip from the canceled podcast within today's video because I want to know if you guys have the same standpoint that I do, that Brittany Broski is looking a little bit hypocritical. My whole thing is like, hey, if she thinks that people are bad for her image, that's totally fine. I feel like, look, if this is your brand to be very PG and maybe she has like a younger audience, I don't really know. But I feel like at the end of the day, hold it across the board, not just towards Tana, because let's keep it real. Ethan Klein is controversial. Theo Von is controversial. So it's like, girl, I don't know. I want her to address this. Honestly, I feel like if Brittany were to just come out and be like, hey, like, honestly, just keeping it real, I don't really vibe with Tana. Like, I don't really like her. Then they'd be like, oh, okay, then I totally get it. Do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, I feel like, yes, of course, maybe she's trying to be like politically correct or something. But at the end of the day, let's keep it real. Not everybody's gonna like everybody. Do you know what I mean? Anyways, we're going to be talking about that within today's video. Make sure you guys check out my podcast channel. It'll be linked down below. If you guys are on watching this on TikTok, it'll be linked somewhere. So make sure you guys check it out. Let me shut up. Let's go to get into it. I'm going to go ahead and play the clip from the canceled podcast. I do want to let you guys know in advance. I apologize that I'm going to have to go ahead and speed it up. First of all, it's kind of long. Second of all, I'm like, what if it's copywritten? So I'm like, let me not. But this is the podcast in case you guys are curious with Trisha Paytas on it. And I'm just so curious to know what you guys have to think about it. So go ahead and check it out.
This thing too with like, you always ask me, do you book your own guests? And it's like, essentially, yeah, like I'll just text people occasionally, do you want to come on? And then it is one of two reactions every time. Like, fuck yes, I'm so excited. Like the podcast is huge. I want to come on, whatever. Or like, no, get me so far the fuck away from that. Like, I don't want anything.
Someone said that. People say that to you?
Yes, all the time. So that's why I don't really reach out for that.
Oh, just say you're busy.
Just say no or leave me on red.
Yeah, what? Leave me on red. Heavy on that, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's like, like I don't necessarily, and people like our solo episodes or our with you episodes the most. Like,
I love your solo episodes.
Like, or just you. Like, other than that, the guests, like, the guest is very like hit or miss, you know what I mean? Whatever. So I don't try too hard for guests anyways, because I like get scared, whatever, yada, yada. And so I'd been seeing Brittany Broski on Theo Vaughn, like a bunch, like all those clips. And it was so funny.
So
she did amazing. It was one of my favorite episodes of Theo Vaughn ever. And I fucking like, she's hilarious. I love her podcast. I texted her and I was like, I would actually fall over and die to have you on my podcast if you're ever feeling like doing charity, LOL.
I love the way you ask someone. Yeah,
I set it up very much like, you are so above this, but like if you ever wanted to come stoop down to the slums, we're here and we'd love to have you, Brittany.
Yeah.
Whatever. And she said, OMFG, you know I love you, but my fans would literally stab and grill me on a campfire if I did.
Stab and grill me on a campfire.
And then I said, why? And she didn't answer me.
I really love her. I think she's so funny, but that really bothered me, actually.
I mean, that's literally, first of all, so rude just in general. Like,
I just
that was
think,
true.
Say you're busy. Like, say you're busy. Don't say, like, my fans all hate you. Because, like, she has so many fans. And to say that, like, that entire group of people would stab and grill you on a campfire for associating with canceled is like
which
crazy.
Is yikes.
Like that, you're basically saying that many people like look down on us and don't like us.
And I thought there was some crossover, like, because I love Brittany Broski.
For sure is crossover.
Like,
for sure.
And if you're like, Theo is controversial. Like, I guess I just forget about my past, you know, and I'm like, okay, like, but we always have had that kind of relationship where when I see her, we have a lot of fun, but I know she doesn't want to be on the internet with me. And it like makes me feel like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh, like
that gives me like a guy who doesn't want to be seen with you vibes. Like, it just is like, feels icky.
I'm not saying everyone has to do the fucking canceled podcast at all. This just reaffirms to me that no matter how well the podcast is doing, or like Jelly Roll wants to come on, or like someone huge wants to come on, or like, you know what I mean? Like that there's always going to be so much of the influencer space who wants nothing to do with us.
It's just rude to say, because even like you said, even if they don't want anything to do, you could, like you said, just like you get the hint, like ignore you, like whatever.
Yeah,
like,
but then it's like in some ways I'm like, okay, that's cool that she just straight up was honest and like said her actual reason. But also, it's kind of
mean. You could just be like, oh, I don't think our audiences would cross to say that.
Do you really think? I mean, she knows her fan base better than anyone in the world. But do you really think that they would stab and grill her on a campfire for coming on the canceled podcast?
I really don't think so, because I think a lot of those same like people, like the people who I would think watch her, like the people who watch like Cody Ko and like Fibula and like those kind of people, and I feel like we have a lot of those people.
All right, as y'all saw from right there, I don't know, low-key I feel like it comes across a little bit hurtful. Do you know what I mean? Because I really do feel like Tana Mongeau is probably like, damn, like I'm never gonna be able to outlive my past. Like, damn, I was a young girl on the internet and I made some mistakes and this is never gonna go away, you know? Obviously, look, hey, she's not hurting for money. I heard she's making millions per month from her like OF and from her podcast and from sponsors, so obviously she's not hurting whatsoever. But I do think that it sucks inside as a human being to be like, I've learned from that, I've grown from that, like I've moved on from that, and then people are obviously holding it to you, you know? I think that that's very unfortunate. At the time of me filming this video, Brittany Broski hasn't really like commented on this. I think that maybe she will in a future podcast, or maybe she won't, I don't know. But I feel like low-key a lot of people will probably be asking her to, because this was blowing up on TikTok, y'all. Like, I'm talking about the videos that I've seen about it have millions of views, so I'm like, clearly a lot of people are invested in this. One other question that I want to ask you guys too is, do you feel that their audiences are so different? I don't know if I'm delusional, but I feel like low-key, I feel like Tana's hilarious, I feel like Brittany's hilarious, and I feel like they're two young white girls. So I'm just kind of like, your audiences are the same. I don't know if I'm tripping on this. Obviously, I don't know their analytics, but as an outsider, as a viewer, I feel like their audience is the same. I watch both of their videos, so clearly I'm within the same audience for both. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't classify, you know, either one of them as like stand-up comedians, but they're both very funny people. I would put them in the comedy category of podcast. Do you know what I mean? So I'm like, it wouldn't be too far-fetched for your audiences to be exactly the same. So I don't really understand Brittany using the whole audience thing as like a, you know, way out of not doing it. I don't know, maybe I'm just tripping, but please let me know what you guys think about this. I am so curious. And do you guys feel that Britney is being a hypocrite? Because look, I know at the end of the day Britney is very, very loved online. That's why I'm kind of like me calling her out as like a hypocrite. I feel like obviously people are gonna be like, oh my gosh, you're this or that, but it's like, if y'all only knew that I actually really thoroughly enjoy her content. But I'm just saying, at the end of the day, let's call a spade, and I'm like, she's low-key being a hypocrite. You can't sit here and be like, oh no, Tana, you're so controversial, but then go on Ethan Klein's podcast and Theo Von's podcast. Like, it just doesn't make sense, in my opinion. But make sure you guys let me know your opinions about everything. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, Girl Scout.